The story of the Titanic is not just a story of the sinking of a ship, but a complete history of human pride, overconfidence in technology, class differences, and reforms born of tragedy. At the beginning of the 20th century, the world was in the throes of industrial development. Giant steamships, the strength of steel, and amazing feats of engineering were making man believe that he could defeat nature. The symbol of this thinking was the Titanic, which was called unsinkable at the time. The construction of the Titanic began in 1909 in Belfast, Ireland. The ship was being built for the White Star Line to meet the needs of passengers on the Atlantic Ocean, fast, safe, and luxurious travel. At that time, sea travel was not just a means but a luxury. The Titanic was designed to be the pinnacle of this luxury. It was about 882 feet long, weighed more than 46,000 tons, and had modern watertight compartments, which were claimed to keep the ship afloat even if some parts were flooded. The ship's interior was exemplary. First-class passengers had luxurious rooms, luxurious dining halls, a swimming pool, a gym, a library, and a beautiful staircase. Second class also had the best facilities for that time, while third class provided simple but relatively safe and organized accommodation. It was this class distinction that later became clear during the accident. On April 10, 1912, the Titanic began its first and last passenger voyage from Southampton, England. Along the way, it stopped at Cherbourg, France, and Cobb, Queenstown, Ireland, where more passengers boarded. In total, there were more than 2,200 people on board, including the world's richest people, businessmen, artists, workers, families, and people of different nationalities. Everyone had the hope of a new future in their hearts, especially for those passengers who wanted to go to America and start a new life. The early days of the voyage were calm and pleasant. The sea was relatively smooth, the weather was cold but clear. But there was danger in the background. Reports of icebergs were being received in the North Atlantic. Several ships warned by wireless messages, but the speed was not reduced. One reason was that the captains and officers of that era were accustomed to such dangers and had immense confidence in modern technology. On the night of April 14, 1912, when most of the passengers were asleep, the Titanic hit a large iceberg. The collision was not direct, but rather a friction from the side of the ship, but this friction proved fatal. The steel hull cracked, and water began to enter several watertight compartments. At first, many people did not take the danger seriously, because the ship seemed to be stable. As time passed, the truth began to emerge. The amount of water increased, and the bow of the ship gradually began to sink. Then the order was given to prepare lifeboats. But the bitter truth was that the number of lifeboats on board was not enough for all the passengers. According to the laws of the time, this number was legal, but it proved to be insufficient for human lives. Chaos spread. The principle of women and children first was implemented, which was implemented in some places and not in others. First-class passengers were usually informed first, while many third-class passengers were left to find a way out. Language, class, and lack of information added to their difficulties. The cold was unbearable. The seawater was freezing like ice. In the early hours of the morning of April 15, 1912, the Titanic broke in two and sank to the bottom of the ocean. The scene was apocalyptic. Screams, darkness, cold water, and helplessness. All of these combined to create a tragedy that shook the world. It is estimated that more than 1,500 people lost their lives, while about 700 were saved. The rescue ship Carpathia later arrived on the scene and took the survivors to safety. News of the accident spread like wildfire around the world. Newspapers, the public, and governments all began to ask, how could such a large and modern ship sink? Investigations were launched, which revealed that warnings had been ignored, speed had not been reduced, and safety measures were inadequate. The Titanic disaster brought revolutionary changes to the maritime world. Lifeboats were made mandatory for all passengers on every ship. 24-hour wireless surveillance was made necessary, and strict rules of navigation in icy regions were enforced. Thus, this tragedy, despite the loss of human life, became a cause for future safety. In 1985, the wreck of the Titanic was discovered in the depths of the ocean, which still stands as a silent witness. This wreck reminds us that the power of man in the face of nature is limited. The story of the Titanic still lives on in books, films, and documentaries, and teaches every generation that along with technology, humility, and caution are also necessary.